Blame me if I don't love you, okay? Hello, everyone. I'm Emma. Welcome back to the show on TLC. Next chapter. Don't forget to subscribe and give this episode a thumbs up. Sister Wives star Mykelti Brown is one of Christine's easiest and most diligent children. Beyond her involvement with the Pink Drink Company, Mykelti also earns income through Patreon, where she and Tony Padron spill family tea in exchange for paid memberships. But what really left viewers in shock was Mykelti's latest video, in which her daughter, Avalon, may have unexpectedly revealed the truth about Kody and Robyn. Keep watching to find out exactly what went down. Sister Wives. Mykelti Brown's alarming accusations about Kody. Mykelti has made some remarkable accusations against her father, Kody, over time, especially about his unequal relationship with Robyn. She has in the past accused him of blaming everyone but himself, even as the family continued to disintegrate. In one of her latest accusations, Mykelti talked about how Kody began drifting apart from his older children after the family relocated to Flagstaff. She said this distance only increased after Garrison's demise. The majority of the Brown siblings have remained silent regarding their father, even on holidays and birthdays. But some fans now think Avalon might have inadvertently confirmed everybody's worst suspicions about what Kody is or isn't doing for his kids and grandkids. Avalon's remarks regarding Robyn and Kody leave fans aghast. On social media, Sister Wives fans began talking about Mykelti's latest Patreon video, where she and Tony reacted to the first part of the tell-all. But what truly caught people's attention was when little Avalon entered the frame and began referring to her grandparents by the names she knows them by. According to viewers, Avalon sweetly called Christine and referred to Janelle as Grandma. But the surprise moment of all was when Avalon barely reacted to Robyn, indicating that she might not even recognize her. Avalon allegedly told her, "Robyn is my friend," though she didn't seem to know her name. A whisper that no genuine bond between them exists. What left people even more stunned was when Avalon hesitated to recognize Kody, finally asking for his name before addressing him as Grandpapa. That hesitation? It could be telling. Similar to Robyn, this makes me think of that time Avalon excused herself to run and hug R, but not K. It also reminds me of the time Avalon was missing and Janelle was the one to find her. Robyn fakes it, so when Mykelti shifted, she likely tagged her as unsafe. LOL. My mother is the ultimate queen of "if only you lived closer," which approximately means no effort to reach out to me or the children unless we travel there. Perhaps Avalon refers to Robyn as a friend merely because that is less complicated for a kid to comprehend. At least it's a positive twist. Not like one of my students who calls his dad's wife La Bruja. So, hey, it could be worse. Seriously, that's her grandma. And I don't know how it's any different. Christine's mom was addressed as Ma, and she expected that same name from her grandkids. Sister Wives. Kody Brown's shady comments about protecting his kids. This isn't the first time there was backlash over Kody Brown's words regarding his children and grandchildren. Last month, the Sister Wives star popped up in a cameo video offering parenting tips to a fan. He said parents ought to protect their children from older siblings who come from different spouses. Many recognized right away he was speaking about his own circumstances, and eyebrows surely were raised. Some fans think this is precisely what Kody and Robyn are doing to their children, which may account for the fact they're so distanced from their older step-siblings from his earlier marriages. Janelle Brown. Lastly, unmasks the reality concerning Kody and Robyn. Sister Wives reality television star Janelle Brown is no longer holding her tongue when it comes to Kody and Robyn. Things got fiery during the season 19. Tell all from the word go. Kody admitted he felt attacked for favoring Robyn and claimed he has a deeper level of love for her, although he still doesn't believe he's done anything wrong. Christine and Mary have both publicly spoken out against their former husband before, But Janelle's recent remarks, they could be the sharpest yet. Kody and Janelle, looking back at what broke down? In part 1 of the tell-all, Kody spilled where he and Janelle went off the rails. He said he doesn't actually know what really happened, only that it had reached a breaking point. Sooner or later, his frustration boiled over, and he was through too. Next, he turned and accused Janelle of playing the victim card. But Janelle had no problem pushing back quickly, asserting that she's never played that card. All she's ever wanted is for her boundaries and emotions to be respected. She went on to add that if she had only known Kody for a year, she wouldn't have married him. That line confirmed her greatest regret, not having a chance to know him better before jumping headfirst into polygamy. Janelle finally tells the truth about Kody and Robyn TLC. Just released a sneak peek from an upcoming episode of the Sister Wives Tell-All, which includes Janelle's raw sit-down interview. She also opens up about her messy relationship with Kody and Robyn, confessing she can be a fantastic friend to Kody. But when it comes to Robyn, she admits they've never been on good terms. Janelle made one thing clear: she has no ill will toward either of them. She's just not interested in being their friend. She outright admitted, "I don't like them." As fans know, Janelle and Kody officially split in December 2022, ending a marriage that lasted 3 decades. A major turning point was when Kody started neglecting her and their children, especially after the families moved to Flagstaff. Since their breakup, Janelle didn't hesitate to go after her share of the Coyote Pass property, a move that played out in the latest season. Sister Wives. When Will Tell-All Part 2 air, TLC has already teased what's to come in Part 2 of the tell-all. In the upcoming episode, Janelle will dive deeper into why she no longer wants anything to do with Kody and Robyn. We'll also see Christine give her take on being dubbed Kody's favorite ex-wife. And fans are eager to hear her thoughts. But perhaps the biggest curveball? Kody's surprise at wanting to take a guy's trip with Christine's husband, David Woolley. In the wake of a broken polygamous legacy, what was once united under one roof and one faith now resounds with distant voices and unhealed tension. A child's innocent conversation, once a welcome sound, now awakens uneasy memories in a fractured home. One of the daughters, product of a woman who had once been a key player in the family dynamic, has come not only as a shrewd businesswoman, but also as a fearless, tell-it-like-it-is voice. Her honest moments on the web are rewriting a story that was previously dictated by secrecy, partiality, and denial. And running through it all is a silent strain of emotional distance. This is a tale about a mother torn between upholding her heritage and holding on to her autonomy. A husband whose breath got thinner like steam in the desert. And a granddaughter whose innocent candor uncovered secrets that decades of adult subtlety could never quite put into words. What transpired in the periphery of a home movie was so much more than kiddie drama. It was a mirror held against a family divided geographically, by loss, and by broken loyalties. In the larger narrative of the now famous polygamous family featured on national television, one daughter came forward, witty, incisive, and steadfastly loyal to her mother. She has created an independent identity, a life built around motherhood, cherished memories, health products, and an online platform where truth supplants decades of silence. Along with her husband, she fires off blunt questions that strip away the glossy facade of reality television. What started as off-the-cuff chats has evolved into something more. Open-ended sessions full of honest emotion, backstories layered with complexity, and occasionally mild confrontation. But in one recent clip, something changed. A new voice, younger, looser, and entirely unguarded, appeared. Her young daughter drifted into shot, inadvertently changing the emotional course. Her momisms, relaxed and affectionate, released a flood of insight. Because in families like these, a nickname is never really a nickname. As her parents were reminiscing about a classic tell-all moment, their daughter entered the scene, playful, unscripted, and started calling out the names of the people she recognized on television. To the average viewer, her comments might have seemed saccharine or even humorous. But to longtime viewers, everything changed. But to the rest of us who know her so very well, her words struck with a flash of lightning. She spoke of her maternal grandmother with an old-fashioned word, a gentle, loving word that rang out with love and heritage. And when she encountered the woman who had once shared a home and husband with her grandmother, she said the same thing. Grandma. It was a little but potent moment, one that asserted a long-standing emotional connection still very much alive, in spite of dissolved marriages, altered names, and severed legal bonds. Then there was the moment that disturbed so many viewers. When the small girl saw a woman still closely tied to her grandfather, the surviving wife from what was a once plural marriage, she halted. A flash of confusion crossed her face. She called the woman her friend, but she couldn't remember her name. There was no affectionate nickname, no instant knowledge. And when her grandfather appeared, she froze again, looking for how to call him. She settled on a formal title, one that sounded practiced, like it was from tales she'd been told, not actual experience. It was an innocent interruption by a child of a carefully constructed family story. For those who have watched the family drama play out for years, this brief exchange was revealing. Children, by definition, do not pretend to love. They do not pretend to feel comfortable. They talk with a sincerity untempered by the decades of silent accommodation adults become accustomed to. At that moment, this child, unfiltered by years of emotional compromise, exposed something unvarnished. The cracks in the family are not simply adult issues. They are felt, if not comprehended, by the most tender hearts. Throughout the conversation space, audiences responded, some laughing, others worried. To many, the girl's reluctance was evidence of emotional distance that has been growing for years. Some surmised that maybe geographic distance was involved. Others questioned whether or not it was a cause and effect decision by her parents to keep contact with certain relatives at a distance. Not out of hostility, but because those relationships had simply grown too tense to continue. Clues in the past make sense of this. By the time this little girl ever uttered a word, her mother had already begun questioning this man's behavior who had previously dominated her life. She had publicly criticized his ability to deflect blame, to place responsibility elsewhere, and to retreat from relationships that necessitated real emotional commitment. His relocation to a new town, one that circled mountains and thin woods, was a literal as well as symbolic break from his older children, and with the emotional baggage of his past with them. Her daughter's voice would come into the story later on. But her mother's had already gained more power. Following a devastating loss, the passing away of a sister long left hungry for love and validation, her scathing critiques became more pointed. The absence of her father, both physical and emotional, opened up the chasm further. Once a steady presence, his voice had grown silent, now heard only in paid appearances or public spectacles. To those familiar with him once, his words become vacuous. The grandfather, once the fulcrum, was now a stranger. So when the little girl gazed at his face and struggled to come up with a name, the moment was more than uncomfortable. It was symbolic. This wasn't merely a forgotten name. It stood for absence, for the lack of consistency, the emotional shortfall, the phantom presence of a person who once held a family under control with authority and pride. For a man who had once been the rock of a big, complicated family, to be forgotten by his own grandson cut deeper than most anticipated. Yes, one might say that time and space inevitably soften memory. But others recognize something more complicated, a reflection on decisions made, on bonds gone unattended. Because emotional riches aren't inherited. They're earned. They're constructed. Through everyday presence, shared experience, and authentic connection. Conversely, the little girl's familiarity with her maternal grandmother and another past family member openly demonstrated where investments had been placed. Hugs, story time, regular visits. These are the foundations of memory and love. They form roots. And in this instance, it was made evident. Social media response. A combination of humor and heartbreak. As the video clip traveled through forums and feeds, the reactions came in. Others laughed at the child's confused looks, charmed by her naivety. But others looked harder, interpreting her words through a darker filter. One commenter explained that the same toddler had run eagerly to hug one woman, but stiffened up when it came to the man she couldn't place. Another remembered a prior incident where the girl disappeared in a crowd, only to be found and consoled, not by her parents, but by some grandmother figure who, though no longer legally bound to the family, was present emotionally. Others proposed that the woman, now just called a friend, possibly had knowingly established emotional boundaries, particularly if the parents of the child had become emotionally distant or critical. They noted that family labels alone do not guarantee intimacy. True engagement results from willing participation, not out of duty. From cameos to cold advice. In another piece that stirred controversy, the boy's grandfather reappeared in a commercial video message where he dished on some parenting tips that made many people uncomfortable. He cautioned against shielding kids from older siblings attached to other partners. Advice so tailored, it couldn't help but be personal and pointed. To some, it vindicated an old suspicion that rather than taking responsibility for his part in the dysfunctional family pattern, he still provides detachment masquerading as insight. Most interpreted his words as thinly veiled allusions to his own broken home, a family whose children, born of various mothers, now lead widely divergent lives. For the young girl's mother, these were just more pages in a long, familiar script. Divide, distance, withdraw, her own life, and now her daughter's happy disclosures, all cohered into a coherent narrative. A tale in which the price of selective memory is paid by those who are left to remember. But this is not a story of heroes or villains. It's an observation on how families change, sometimes as one, sometimes in fragments. It's about how the softest voices usually tell the deepest truths, and love, memory, and legacy are not established by titles or blood, but by presence, attention, and consistency. As this family's saga continues to unfold before a worldwide audience, one thing becomes more and more clear. The children are listening, they are learning, they are recalling, and sometimes they are talking. In soft whispers, in stammering hesitation, in moments of searing insight. What started out as a seemingly straightforward conversation, just another shot in a long series of family interviews, quickly evolved into something much different. A flood of candor, sudden and unguarded, rolled in like a tempest. Among soft lights and posed ease, a woman who had long been embedded in the cloth of plural marriage got up, not in spite, but wielded with truth, tempered by years of quiet watching and hidden pain. What came forth wasn't merely a recounting, it was a reckoning. For decades, she'd lived in accordance with a system that required subduction of self for the good of togetherness, a framework that had promised spiritual balance for personal sacrifice. But when that construct failed, when illusion surrendered to brutal fact, so did her silence. In the first of the tell-all interviews that wrapped season 19, she spoke the truth that many had only surmised. The man to whom she'd once anchored her life, whose choices rippled across every chapter of their shared story, said he was shocked by the failure of it all. But his shock betrayed more than puzzlement. It revealed a man out of touch with his effect. His language circumvented responsibility. He didn't think, he reacted. His anger seemed based on the fact that loyalty had broken down, even as love, presence, and hard work had disappeared long ago. As he dodged with bewilderment, she responded with candor. She didn't assume the role of martyr. She quickly dispelled the idea that she was casting herself as the wronged party. Her focus was simple: truth and the right to hold space for her own needs. Her boundaries, she said, were not weapons. They were shields, protections long overdue. She reflected, not with anger, but with a sort of quiet regret. Had she seen the man fully, earlier, not the image, but the reality, her decisions could have been so far apart. Her voice didn't contain venom. It contained relief. And in that instant, she reclaimed years lost to silent compromise. In a subsequent clip broadcast by the network, viewers saw a woman no longer defined by her job, not solely a mother, not only an ex-wife, but a woman who had finished a profound internal process. Her words were poignant in their simplicity. She could be civil with her ex-husband, but the bridge to emotional intimacy had long since fallen apart. When it was his present girlfriend, she was even more direct. There had never been a friendship, and there never would be. Not out of resentment, but simply because nothing had ever existed in the first place to repair. You can't mend what was never constructed. There is a strong stillness in opting for indifference instead of anger. For years, fans speculated about feuds, about subterranean hostility, about secret hurts. But her clarity removed the necessity for guesswork. She didn't want to hurt them. She just wanted them out of there. Her life had gone on, not loudly, but with intention. She no longer invested energy into repairing something that never had been whole. Her leaving the shared spiritual framework wasn't loud. It was steady, sure, and done. When the family relocated to that pine-circled mountain town, something within her shifted. She couldn't ignore the emotional divide anymore. She saw attentiveness disintegrate into nothingness. Support turned to quiet. And though she stood firm for her children, the one who had promised presence instead provided nothing but space. And that space started to yell. Its decibel grew after heartbreak. When sorrow knocked the family with crushing weight, it was not love that arrived. It was nothing. And nothing in the midst of grieving cries out louder than anything that might be said. In the moments where unity was needed most, what arrived instead was void. And in that void, the final fracture was forged.